What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the sixth album by Rob Zombie. Basically, this project is called The Electric Warlock Acid Witch, and it came out in the spring of 2016. Now, this actually has a lengthier title. Basically, the lengthier title is The Electric Warlock Acid Witch Satanic Orgy Celebration Dispenser, and it once again came out in the spring of 2016. So the thing about this particular project is just the fact that anything after like Hellbilly Deluxe 2 from 2010 by Rob Zombie, most of these album titles started to get pretty just like hideously long as far as that pitch can happen. It's not hideous in like a bad way, but just the concept, it just doesn't roll off the tongue quite as extensively as like Hellbilly Deluxe or the Sinister Urge or some of those type ones from like the early 2000s, late 90s as far as that pitch kind of goes, or even like the White Zombie days. But then I would suppose that White Zombie actually had some differential titles as well. But it's this kind of concept. I'm just going to refer to it as the Electric Warlock Acid Witch. I would have to say it's a pretty good concept. This is actually a pretty heralded album here. I like the concept. Just like last year when I reviewed Rob Zombie's 2013 album, The Venomous Rat Regeneration Vendor, I'd have to say that was a classic to me. Definitely appreciated that one quite a bit. Had some good turn up. Definitely from what I remember, had some excellent turn up type songs and overall thrilling energy. But this one's a little bit different. It's just a more widespread kind of varietized project. This particular project amalgamates a lot of styles from White Zombie and Rob Zombie as far as that particular pitch kind of goes along with it. Just some great stuff to kind of get here. Just pretty much like a damn well classic. This would have to say out of the mid-late 2010s as far as that pitch kind of goes. Was not expecting to give it as high a rave as score as that it particularly is going to get. But it's just kind of the concept. The thing about Rob Zombie in this particular album is most of these song titles do not roll off the tongue. He's pretty much in like hardcore type mode by this particular point. So obviously the Dragula days and the simple days like Dragula days and Feel So Numb days and Super Beast type days and Living Dead Girl days are somewhat vanished, I'd have to say. But it's not to say that the quality vanished, I'd have to say. It's just an excellent concept to get some thrilling ones. This is kind of the concept is just more in a hardcore type fashion. These song titles just don't roll off the tongue, but it's pretty widespread. The thing about this particular project is just the fact that Wikipedia says that this particular album is industrial metal, but I don't really see as much industrial metal on here that much. There's a couple of songs that remind me of some of the pitches from Astro Creep 2000 and Hellbilly Deluxe as far as that pitch kind of goes, like mid-late 90s Rob Zombie as far as that particular kind of goes. But I look after the concept. For the most part, this is more hard rock. But I'd say it has some metal in here. It's definitely some heavy metal mixed with like some hard rock. But I don't really see the industrial metal side of things as much. It just doesn't have like the full blown kind of carnivorous type ones like Super Beast or Living Dead Girl. I mean, it does have some heaviness. The riffage on here is pretty shrill and stuff like that. I'd have to say in particular, it's just kind of the concept that a lot of these are just more bar hopping type ones, and it's not like that's a problem bar hopping, but just kind of in a more hard rock hard rock cafe type bar type more hard rock bar, hard rock cafe type place as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. Some karaoke bars and pitches like that as far as that particular kind of goes. But it is an excellent concept. This is a pretty brief album. Really, there's only about 9 songs on this particular project. There's 12 songs on here, but 3 of them are just kind of interludes and intros and pitches like that. Most of these are pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this album's going to get a 10 out of 10 just because out of the 12 songs on here, I wound up recommending 2 10s. There's really only 2 songs, or one of which is an interlude, the other which is a song that I don't recommend just to stay within that relative pitch. But there is some pretty good promotion. I'm glad that Rob Zombie, I was flipping through YouTube and I saw that there was a music video for the song The Life and Times of a Teenage Rock God. So that's a pretty good concept to get that one. But then there were 3 singles off this album on top of that. So it seemed like Rob Zombie promoted this project pretty well, unlike some of his previous albums like The Venomous Rat Regeneration Vendor and some of those type ones. Hellbilly Deluxe 2 was kind of a briefly promoted one as well that only had 2 singles. But the thing about Rob Zombie and White Zombie is just the fact that he's actually been around since like the mid 80s. So by this point, it had been like 25, almost 30 years as far as that pitch had kind of happened with this. So it's just kind of the concept as far as saying that obviously Rob Zombie's kind of like Eminem, Snoop Dogg, some rappers, pitches like that, folks like that, AC/DC, Metallica, some folks that just have been around for multiple decades. It's kind of the concept that just getting, these particular songs is just a great thing. So, but we'll go ahead and talk about the singles on here. There's a good assortment. So the first single is "Well Everybody's Fucking in a UFO," which is a pretty nice one. This is like a completely tore up AM after hours venue haze of a song, I'd have to say in particular. This is like some great turn up and pace, I would have to say about this particular song. It's just an overall thrilling type one. So this one really feels like you're pretty fucked up just within the night sense. Just some night venue kind of haziness as far as that pitch kind of goes. But Rob Zombie in like the verses is pretty different. He sounds almost sarcastic in the song verses as far as that particular kind of goes. I think just by this point, it's just you can't, in terms of taking him seriously to the point where you think every song is just going to knock your socks off and be like a full blown kind of gnarled like song like Dragula, something like that. I think he's just kind of not taking himself as seriously as far as that pitch kind of goes. But it works pretty well. It's just kind of an affable, not necessarily goofy, but just kind of more lackadaisical type pitch as far as like the effects of how his cadence kind of is on this particular song. But it works pretty well to kind of get that, just because once again he'd been around since the 80s. But it is a highlight. This works pretty well. This really feels like you're pretty tore out of your mind, just kind of hazed out in like a night venue pub, something like that. Some of those relative type pitches is some good hangout after hours type haze to really get. This works pretty well, I'd have to say. The Hideous Exhibitions is a pretty highlighted song. This is the second single, but this one didn't chart on the radio as much, but it was so this one's still a pretty nice one. This is like a vintage zombie hard rock bar hopping of the song, I'd have to say in particular. This one's kinetic and radio ready, I would definitely have to say. And the song is kinetic and radio ready noise, I'd have to say in particular. And this song pretty much exhilarates pretty damn well, I'd have to suppose. So this is kind of one that's more in like that hard rock pitch as far as that particular kind of goes. Just a different pitch as far as Rob Zombie kind of went. I kind of feel like this is the sort of stuff that White Zombie was aiming to do back in like the early mid 90s and pitches like that as far as that particular kind of goes. But you know, the initial Rob Zombie albums like the Sinister Urge and Hellbilly Deluxe, those are more industrial metal type pitches. This one just kind of amalgamates. I kind of feel like the industrial metal sound is kind of missed on here, but I do like the concept of some of these, just these hard rock type ones, just to kind of get in a more relative type sense for just some standard pounders as far as that particular kind of goes. The third single is In the Age of the Consecrated Vampire. I'd say this is another nice one. Now, most of these songs have pretty lengthier titles. I would say them, but it's just kind of concept. I just think there'd be some errors within the mixture of it. I feel like having less editing. I feel like having less editing to do, so I'm just going to say the shorter versions of the titles as far as that pitch kind of goes. But basically, this is like a nice electro kind of vintage rave type vibes that this song particularly kind of gives. And then the song is just a particular social highlight, I'd have to say in particular, and the song is pretty compelling, I would have to say. So this one's definitely a nice electro type one. It really reminds me of White Zombie in a lot of pitches as far as that particularly kind of goes along with it. Just some real nice bopish type ones to kind of get here. If you do like songs like More Human Than Human, some of those type ones off of Astro Creep 2000, some of those type pitches from 1995, 96, as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it, there's some excellent stuff to kind of get here. I do like the fact that just getting an amalgamation of White Zombie and Rob Zombie, but I kind of feel like in certain senses, maybe Sinister Urge and Hellbilly Deluxe aren't quite as replicated as much in terms of like a sheer crazy hit single like Dragula, something like that. I do feel like In the Age of the Consecrated Vampire is a nice one. Doesn't really roll off the tongue that easily, but I do feel like Hideous Exhibitions, In the Age of the Consecrated Vampire, some nice ones to kind of get, but they're just kind of more hardcore type feels. I mean, they're definitely excellent songs. Just kind of the concept that they're just more for like the stabilized kind of fan base of Rob Zombie and stuff like that. Just if you've been with him since like the 80s, early 90s, 20, 30, 25 years, pitches like that, I'd have to say these are some nice ones. But you know, when I think back to some of these times, I don't really recall hearing a lot of these songs on the radio for very long. I mean, I think the thing about it is, when you think of Rob Zombie, the songs that are basically staples on the radio today, you think of songs like Feel So Numb, Dragula, More Human Than Human, some of those type pitches. There's a hit single off of like White Zombie's 1992 album. I keep forgetting that one. I don't actually own that album, but one of those ones, the I think it's like Thunder Kiss 92, something like that, off of the White Zombie album from 92 as far as that pitch goes. I mean, he definitely has some good staples to kind of have, but some of these are just not quite as staple ready. So I mean, this album's going to get a 10 out of 10, but just in terms of the concept of saying whether or not the social score or full blown will is just kind of, we'll see about it, but more than likely it will. Just kind of concept, just kind of depends. But so that's the basic concept about this particular album. Like I was saying, there's 12 songs on here, and out of those 12 songs, I wound up recommending to you 10 of them. So the only 2 songs I didn't recommend on here would just be basically Super Doom Hex Gloom Part 1 and then Word Alack. So talk about those real quick. This is the reason why I don't recommend those songs. Basically, Word Alack, I just didn't like the arrangements of that particular one. That one was trying to be like a cinematic type. Word Alack was trying to be like a cinematic type one. I did like the arrangements of some of it. It was pretty haunting and just overall ghastly as far as that pitch kind of went, but just the overall lengthiness of it was just a little bit more than probably what it needed to be in terms of that relative pitch, I'd have to say. And then the Super Doom Hex Gloom Part 1 was just kind of one that, I don't know, I just didn't appreciate like the instrumentation of that one. I definitely feel like A Hearse That Overturns is just a better produced one. That one was just a little bit more convincing in terms of that pitch. And it's the same thing with like The Last of the Demons Defeated. Both of the interludes, 2 out of 3 of the interludes and instrumentals are just far better in terms of that relative pitch. But I didn't connect as much with the Super Doom type one as far as that particular kind of goes. But this album's still going to get a 10 out of 10. So I would have to say it's just an excellent concept. But basically, to talk about the song A Hearse That Overturns, this is a pretty nice one. It's like a good haunting intermission gem, I'd have to say in particular. This one has like a creeping acoustic tune about it that's pretty awesome just to kind of get on here. And this one just gives some pretty good goosebumps, I'd have to say. And this is a pretty dope song. Definitely appreciate this one. It's like a nice interlude to kind of have on here, just an in between type moment, going getting snacks out of the fridge, just some pitches like that, just in like the grim kind of crisp, cooler autumn weather as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. Just some horrific type stuff. If you do like Rob Zombie's movies and pitches like that, it's like some good intro music to kind of have some of that creeping kind of aesthetic, I'd have to say. And this is kind of a ghastly album. That's the thing about it. I mean, it can be summer, I would have to say in particular. Definitely has some summer boilers on here, but it is also an autumn album that keeps like that typical kind of creeping Rob Zombie aesthetic. So it's just a nice pitch to kind of get for like also October, November, even December, I'd have to say, despite the fact that that's more holiday bound. But I would still have to say for fall, it's some great stuff. Satanic Cyanide's a real nice one. This is like some great backyard smoke session gems, I would have to say in particular. It's like a gnarled kind of summer outdoor activity of a song, I'd have to say in particular, and this is just some great barbecue type fun, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get this one. I would definitely have to suppose some great and excellent concepts just within that particular vibe. And this is just some great barbecue fun, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty good concept to get this particular song. This has a lot of good, excellent type vibes on here just to get just within that relative range, I would have to say. Just some excellent stuff. I really look after the concept of some of this type of stuff, but this is pretty haunting, I'd have to say. This is just for some backyard type thrills and just overall smoke sessions. Just some good appeals of just like some social type outings just within a more kind of summer festivity. I mean, I think it can be kept in either way, whether it's just a local kind of shindig or something larger. Just is some great, excellent kind of backyard type music and just overall outdoor type fare, great for summer and pitches like that. Just a lot of good gnarlage and a lot of good gnarled riffage and stuff like that. Just great for barbecue, food, snacks, pitches like that, smokage, things that relative pitch. That's it's a nice one. Some great hangout type tunes. There are some hangout songs on here. Some of these ones like Satanic Cyanide. I feel like In the Bone Pile is a nice one for that. I feel like Get Your Boots On is a nice one for that relative pitch. Just some typical kind of White Zombie type fare, just in a more recent rendition of some of that type of stuff. There's definitely some gnarled ones on here and some nightclub type songs like typical White Zombie type fare from like the mid 90s. But there are some hangout type ones just for more night venue kind of sleaze as far as that particular pitch kind of goes. Just for booth hangouts and pitches like that. The Life and Times of Teenage Rock God is a pretty nice one. This is a pretty good highlighted hit. This song is like some basic kind of house party electro vibes, I'd have to say in particular. And this one definitely reminds me of like 90s White Zombie, I'd have to say. Now, this one almost feels like a little bit younger oriented considering the fact that Rob Zombie was always like an MTV staple back in the day. So for folks who found Rob Zombie back on MTV, this is kind of a nostalgic type song to kind of get in particular just within that relative pitch. This has some real good electro type feels. It's great for a house party type fare. This is one that works pretty damn well with like In the Age of the Consecrated Vampire. Definitely something that reminds of White Zombies. More Human Than Human, some of those type pitches, and Dragula, some of those type ones that just have a little bit more of electro type feel. Definitely a great house party boiler, I'd have to say in particular. Just really has that nostalgia factor in pitches like that, but it's also for like a almost younger oriented sense, but just has a good concept of just being youthful and rambunctious. I'd say just an excellent concept to kind of get that. So it's like a trip of a song, but it works pretty well just because it has some thrilling type vibes to really have things set off and just be a good kickstart in the same process, I'd say. So that's a nice one. Medication for the Melancholy is a pretty nice one. It's like a snarling kind of metal heaviness of a song, I'd have to say. This has some great riffage and energy. I would definitely feel like the turn up happens pretty quick on this song, I'd have to suppose. This is pretty much one of the heaviest songs in the album, definitely. This one's pretty much up there with like the Hideous Exhibitions and some of those type ones. I'd say Get Your Boots On and In the Bone Pile, some other ones that are kind of like that. But definitely Medication for the Melancholy is definitely one of the most gnarled ones on here. This is definitely a metal song. This one's not hard rock. This one's not electro. This one just really has like that snarling kind of metalness. There definitely need to be more songs like this on here. I feel like this is just an excellent one. Really like the instrumentation on this particular song. The band does some excellent work on this particular one. This is just pretty much one of the best songs in the album. This would be an immediate one to go for if you need like the metal Rob Zombie that you're used to. And you just need some real good snarling kind of turn up. In the Bone Pile is a pretty nice one as well. It's like a good hangout after hours vibes that this song particularly kind of has. This is like some vintage zombie vibes, I'd have to say in particular. Pretty good concept to get that sort of pitch. And this is just like a stock kind of night venue riffage hit, I'd have to say in particular. So this one, a little bit more vintage White Zombie type stuff, just within that relative type pitch. If you like White Zombie from like 1992, 1989, some of those type pitches are just those hangout type numbers that are just, basic kind of vanilla riffage, just standard hangout type fair PlayStation type music pitches like that, just within a night venue type sense. This is some excellent type stuff to kind of get here. Definitely appreciate some of these. Real great riffage stuff like that. And then Get Your Boots On is another nice highlight. This is like a rowdy kind of hard rock bar turn up of a song, I'd have to say in particular. This is like a drinks up, get cranked type tune. I'd have to say a pretty good concept to get this one, along with like In the Age of the Consecrated Vampire and some of those type ones, and Medication for the Melancholy, and everybody. This is definitely a great one to get fucked up to, like, well, everybody's fucking in a UFO. That's a good combo with that particular one. The first single, Everybody's in a UFO, and then I would say get your boots on two good rowdy hard rock bar type pitches. Two good rowdy hard rock bar type pitches to kind of have for like some good turn up and just overall drinks in your system, pitches like that. Some excellent concepts. Get Your Boots On also has some great It's the Weekend kind of energy about it. I definitely would have to say, and this is just a pretty dope song. So I definitely appreciate the concept of some of these type ones. Really, Rob Zombie had some pretty thrilling times on this particular project. Just an excellent kind of one. It's just interesting that he was still as inspired way out in 2016 as far as that particularly kind of goes along with it, because you'd think he ran out of energy and ideas, but I'm just glad the concepts of that didn't really happen as far as that particularly kind of went. These are just some excellent type ones. Real rowdiness is just turned up to 10. This would have to say about some of these. I mean, you get some of these hard rock type bar type ones, you get some electro type ones, you get some house party type tunes, you get some pitches like that, just some after hours type tunes, some good concepts. Can't really think of any makeshift type songs, I'd have to say, though. Maybe possibly the Hideous Exhibitions would be one for like the more makeshift, just got done with work type sessions. So that's about maybe the only real bass that Rob Zombie didn't cover on here, I'd have to say. But then Last of the Demons Defeated is another highlighted one. This is a great intro. I'd have to say it's like a pounding kind of crazy night venue boiler. I'd have to say in particular, it's like a great entry cut to kick things off with. This is a great entry cut to kick things off hot. I'd have to say in particular, this is just an overall thrilling type one. So definitely appreciate this kind of get crank kind of energy when you're waiting in line at like a night venue, something like that. Just waiting to get into the venue, get some drinks, sit down, get ready to dance a bit. Some of those type pitches, get ready to flirt with the bartender, some pitches like that. It's a great concept kind of. I mean, it's a short song, it's only like a minute and a half. It's just a great pitch on to hear this. Even hearing this like 2 or 3 times just while waiting outside, something like that, it's a pretty excellent concept to get this one. It's a real thrilling type one. They're definitely, I like the concept of getting songs like this. This is a clever type one. I'm glad that this song's on here compared to it not being on here. I would definitely have to say it's a great concept for that. So that's the concept of this particular album. So me recommending 10 songs out of 12 on here. I'm going to go ahead and give this album like a 10 out of 10. The same thing with the social score. The social score is going to probably like I know I was kind of debating about what I was going to give the social score, but I think it's probably going to get a 10 out of 10 just because there's so many good high grade pitches on here as far as that particularly kind of goes along with it. You get the nightclub songs on here, you get some electro house party type rumblers, you get some good night venue type pitches just with like some hangout type tunes and pitches like that. Just a lot of good stuff. Pretty much caters to a lot of audiences, whether you're a fan of White Zombie, early Rob Zombie, pitches like that. I think for the most part, the only real thing this album's really lacking somewhat is just like a makeshift type song just for just got done with work or just being at work, the last few moments of being at work, something like that. And then just like some more industrial metal. I would have to say it like In the Age of the Consecrated Vampire and like The Life and Times of a Teenage Rock God, some of those type ones that at least have some good electro kind of White Zombie type fare. Because I definitely think that definitely needs to be replicated a lot more just because some of those pitches from like White Zombie and Rob Zombie's complete sheer white hot heyday is probably necessary to kind of have. But I know that that doesn't need to get burnt out or played out as far as that pitch can go. So it's just about appealing to like multiple palettes and just being able to do it correctly. But I would definitely have to say that's this kind of concept. I feel like it maybe possibly need a little bit more industrial metal, but not enough to complain about matching the score, I'd have to say. So 10 out of 10 social as well. In terms of the future, like Rob Zombie's been working on movies and pitches like that. I'd have to say he does have one more album from 2021, at least as of the most present, at least as of the most current present. We'd have to say it's obviously going to be awesome to get more Rob Zombie after this 2021 album. I'd have to say in particular, but who knows when it's going to come out? Maybe 2025, maybe even 2026. We're not really sure at this particular stage. This is the concept of it, but there is still some White Zombie to get to. I have like a 2 or 3, maybe 4 more projects in White Zombie to get to, and one more Rob Zombie album. So we'll definitely get to some more of these. But yeah, once again, this is a classic. Do highly recommend this particular one. It's a surprising classic. The fact that it came out in 2016. Metal was kind of in a relatively lambent and just kind of here and there type place in the mid 2010s as far as that pitch goes. But this is another classic and just some excellent type stuff here that has a lot of great and versatile kind of social appeal.